When I first played Deltarune, I found it to be instantly great. I was around 13 when it came out, and as middle schoolers do, I got incredibly autistic about it immediately. I remember one of my longest standing friendships was formed entirely because of the Deltarune amino and the roleplays we got to do. It was fun. I frequently played as one character through all of our ancient chat logs though. Susie. I had been bullied that entire 3-year stretch of my life, so getting to be her, if even in a role-playing sense, was incredibly cathartic to me. I got to project all of my anger, insecurities, and issues onto her, and then have her overcome them by sheer force of will. Imagine my shock when I found out that she's just like me for real. Deltarune as a whole means a lot to me. Without it, I wouldn't have found my friend, and they wouldn't have gotten me to reject my violently fascistic upbringing, and in turn, actually helped me learn that I'm worth a piss. Now with the recent additions of the new chapters, and more information about Susie, I'm finding that my adoration of her has grown significantly. And given how since then I've learned to objectively and subjectively rank media, fun little trick for doing that, first find out what the author is trying to say, whether or not that's a good message, and then how good or bad they do it. I think I can say that Susie, even despite all of my incredibly biased love toward her, is probably the best character currently in Deltarune, because her story is one of learning to love, and learning to be loved after so many years without any love. So as we've learned in chapters 3 and 4, Susie is one of those kids. The kind who move from house to house every couple of years. The effects on a child's health brought on by this constant moving are extremely negative. Imagine you feel stable in your community. You have some friends, you walk to and from school every day, you go down to the local corner store to get yourself some candy. Maybe you go out to eat every now and then. Everything is normal. Then one day it's 3 AM and you're on the interstate in a U-Haul going to Milwaukee. Your entire life has been uprooted, and if you're especially unlucky, you won't even get a full explanation as to why. We don't know what Susie's sense of normal was, and we can only really infer that her parents aren't the best. But the facts as we understand them are, she moves around from place to place a lot, she doesn't talk to her parents if she can help it, and she's never been able to make many friends. I'm gonna get into some theorizing here, but I feel like I'm in a unique place to do so because I similarly had to move around a lot during my childhood, and I've had people shit on me for the crime of existing. See, I have ADHD and ODD, and I've had that diagnosis ever since I was 7. And I didn't fully understand it at the time, but my disability would affect how a lot of adults treated me. Simply put, I was almost never into the idea of just doing something because I was told to do it. Because I said so, and because it's the rules, are a surefire way to get me to just not do what it is you're asking. And when a child does this, a lot of really pissy adults will deem you to be a problem, translating into no one ever respecting you again. When you do one thing that irks an especially petulant teacher, which is a lot of them, with a wave of their hand, they will signal to everyone else that you are a problem. I can't speak on whether or not Susie has any sort of learning disabilities, but I know this to be true. Something happened and she basically had Problem Child written in all caps with red ink and 3 underlines at the top of her permanent record. And no one ever treated her as anything but that thing we have to work around and hope it doesn't influence the good children too much. It's clear that Susie has been mistreated from her first appearance. No one just kicks the door open, says 3 words, and then slams it completely unprompted. No one just threatens to genuinely maim someone because they saw her eating chalk. No one does these things without a history of terrible caretaking. We learn that this public perception as the bad kid goes really far back. When Susie was especially young, she was in some sort of church or choir club, and got in trouble for screeching Amazing Grace off key. This was her first time singing it, and she was reprimanded for not instantly getting it, probably like the other kids. The piano story is the one people talk about the most, and for good reason. In the piano story, she details how once she tried to play a public piano for fun, and was told that she wasn't allowed, and that they let somebody else play. She attributes this to either her not being good or not looking like she's supposed to be playing it. So she came back in the middle of the night, and she smashed it. Here's the thing though, the entire purpose of a public piano is for it to be used by the public. So the fact that someone, presumably multiple people, came up to her and told her that she wasn't allowed to is incredibly fucked up. The fact that they went out of their way to tell a little girl that she wasn't allowed to play a public piano is just rancid behavior for an adult. And the fact that they let somebody else play right after really lays out what Susie's primary issue is. When she was banned from using the piano, she was effectively told, "You are not a part of us. You are an outsider. Don't ever expect us to like you." And from teachers to peers to random-ass adults on the street to maybe even her own fucking parents, this is what she's been told every single time she's moved to a new place. So we have her inability to make lasting friendships spurred on by her moving so much, pounded on by the fact that instead of being perceived as the new kid, she's instead perceived as the outsider. This could occur for many reasons. It could be because of how she looks. It could be because of how teachers treat her once they see defiant little gutter snipe written on her file in big bold print. It could be because of her family. It could be because she doesn't really talk to anyone. It could be because she doesn't act like a lady, whatever the fuck that means. Or it could be because of her tail. You know, I heard something about lost kids following pointed tails, but I'm not quite sure that tracks, and oh my fucking god! But yeah, it could be a bunch of reasons. And it's not like this is kept particularly secret from her. Susie has a very crass personality. She's the kind of person to make friends by dishing out well-meaning barbs, punches to the arms, general dumbassery. And some people might get the completely wrong idea from that. See, every Lightner kid we've seen go into a dark world is some flavor of the weird kid, and weird kids get misunderstood a lot. So it's entirely possible that people misunderstand her crass and rude attitude as blatant insults and nothing more. And like most people, they either don't know or don't care enough to actually explain to her why that's wrong, only that it is wrong, and that she was wrong for behaving like that. This happens to a lot of kids, and it was usually on us to figure out that that's a shitty way to teach people. You don't teach someone that an action is wrong by shaming them into not doing it. You can shame somebody into doing what you want, but that's not at all the proper way to go about it. You tell them. You tell them why saying that is rude, and you tell them to speak their mind more clearly. I know that I keep banging this drum on like every single fucking video, but open communication is the solution to 70% of your problems. All of this is to say, Susie usually got in trouble for reasons she didn't understand, and no one ever bothered to explain why, so she continued to not understand, and that creates a very angry child. Because in their mind, they're being punished for no reason, for something that they didn't know was wrong, or bad, or rude, or mean. And whenever you demand a reason, you're just called disrespectful until you shut up and accept your punishment. And when you're constantly the kid getting in trouble, other kids will either see that and abuse you because it's not like anybody will help you, or see that and do everything in their power to steer clear of you. When you're told by everyone around you that you are mean, that you are scary, that you are bad, and that you are not good enough, you begin to lose hope, because when this happens, people tend to not see you as anything else. And once you've lost all hope, you might just become the monster they say you are. If they're just going to say you're all of these horrible things anyway, then why should you care about proving them wrong? Why should you care about being good, especially if these supposedly good people are treating you like this? Why should you talk to any of them? Why should you do your classwork? Why should you bother to say one kind word to or do one kind thing for anyone? By Susie's own admission, people tend to only pretend to want to be her friend as a joke, and blatantly lying to someone like that will only exacerbate everything I've laid out here. Susie doesn't see a reason to try anymore, so she is cold, bitter. She adopts the personality of a cup of coffee that's sat out for too long, and being this way hurts sometimes. She's been forced to don a suit of thorns, one whose barbs protect as much as they harm. Nothing but her chest plate embedded into her skin can hurt her now, and she feels like she can never take it off. Because what if, the moment she does, someone takes a swing and shatters her completely? The devil you know is better than the devil you don't. She probably doesn't think this as poetically as it's been phrased, but she does still think this. So if being alone forever means she'll never have to experience the pain of being hurt, that is what she'll do. She will slam doors, and she will threaten people, and she will be nasty. Because all of that will keep people away. In a way, this is a twisted arrival at some sense of self-respect, because even though Susie doesn't like herself very much, she still wants better for herself. But something gets in the way of this. Despite her efforts, Susie still has a ginormous heart, and a dear friend has told her to remain hopeful. And while her intentional rudeness stops people from seeing it most of the time, occasionally, the rays of her warmth shine through onto someone else. And lucky for her, she's about to meet some very wonderful people. It's an average day in hometown. Susie trudges out of bed, half-heartedly brushes her hair before deciding to say fuck it and heads off to school. She kicks open the classroom door and is told she's being paired up with the weird human kid for a school project. She doesn't really care though. Elphys can't find her chalk, so she sends Susie and KRIS out to go find it. Where Susie then eats the chalk she swiped yesterday because she's hungry and felt like it. When she turns around, KRIS is there, po-faced with covered eyes. She asks if they saw, to which they don't respond. Immediately she's gotten it into her head that this is some sort of slight against her. She knows everyone avoids her because they're scared. She knows she can force KRIS' silence. So she picks them up and... This is the first time we get to see into Susie's head. She's immediately picturing KRIS as just another jackass who only plots on her downfall, and as such, deserves none of her respect. Well, almost none of it. A little bit ago, she walked herself into the graveyard in hometown, and she let loose. She doffs her armor and lets her tears flow freely. And for the first time in a long time, someone came to comfort her. Toriel. She asked what was wrong, dried her tears, and told her everything would be okay. Then she took her to the diner for some comfort food. She told her that she would make friends. Not that she hoped she would make friends, but that she would make friends. And for somebody as hopeless as Susie, for somebody who's given up on ever having a single friend, that meant a lot. Susie respected her for having the compassion to see the scary girl not as a threat, but as, well, a child in need of comfort. So Susie decided she was okay, and she decided that KRIS, by extension, was okay. And as she learned more about them, she decided that they were more okay than most. Like an especially not-so-bad classmate you wouldn't mind talking at. But she has to keep up her image of the one you do not fuck with. She has to show them that they are not friends, and that she has no intention of becoming their friend. They wander into the closet where the floor gives way. Then KRIS finds her, and she decides to stick with them because there's safety in numbers. Lancer attacks them, they run away and meet up with Rouse, who tells them that they have the power to save the world. To which Susie responds, no? Susie's idea of heroes are people who are good. Objectively good, and she's objectively bad in her eyes. But her definition of a good person is pompous dick who lords their goodness over others. And her definition of a bad person is bitch who don't care what anyone says so long as she has her fun. Also, something funny with her is that from here on out, up until she befriends Lancer, she's just so done with everything. Like, from the moment she's down here, she's practically spamming the how to exit the Dark World button. I hear this is what Alice in Wonderland is like. She does take a brief aside to beat Lancer's ass, though. She smiles when he says, "Lamau, I'm gonna bite your shins," because it's basically giving her the green light to splatter his gushy insides all over the tile floor, which she instantly tries to do when you have the option to immediately nullify. After he leaves, Susie tells Rouse to take off his dumb cloak, revealing this SpongeBob SquarePants head-ass motherfucker. Something of note is that from the moment Rouse says, "We're going to be great friends," Susie instantly asks where the exit is and leaves. In her mind, this is the 12th goddamn time someone said, "Hi, I want to be your friend," with all these fake niceties. She's thinking, oh, here we go again. She thinks it's a front because, well, if this guy asked to be your friend in middle school right off the bat, you'd probably say no. That's something a lot of kids would consider odd after 4th grade. No one asked to just be friends, they just be friends. No one is this kind or open. And in Susie's case, she thinks that no one's ever this kind or open to her. So she dips and tells the actually cool person in the room that she'll see them later. She roams around the Dark World, beats people up, eating cakes, making herself public enemy number 1 so no one distracts her from getting the fuck out of Wonderland. Eventually, KRIS and Rouse meet up with her, and she begrudgingly follows them through the rest of the Dark World. And Susie keeps mistaking Rouse for a malicious actor who's just bent on getting her to do what he says. She reacts to basically everything he says with uncaring glances and rude remarks when he's just trying to be nice. Because like I said before, to her, he's just another asshole pretending to be nice who only wants her to behave, to bend to his will. So she'll make this experience as annoying for him as it is for her in hopes that he'll just waste his time on somebody who he can control. And something really cool is how this extends to her actions in battle. For most of the game, you cannot control Susie. She always attacks on every single turn, and you can't make her do anything else. This is because she's committed to doing to you what she's doing to Rouse, because now it's both of you trying to control her, and she's not having any of it. And this is an annoying feature of the game. It wastes a move on your part and or fucks up your perfect pacifist run, and it means that you can't spare a trio of enemies in one go, which is why it's a great element of the story. Toby does this a lot in his games. Sometimes he sacrifices the game being fair for the story being more enriching, which turns around and makes it a great part of the game. This annoying playstyle signals to you what kind of person Susie is, how she's defined to your control in a game where the most important thing you've heard so far is, your choices don't matter. Yet yours may not, but hers sure as hell do. The next time you meet Lancer, she tells him to shut the fuck up for being a cringe-ass dewdrop baby. See, as a mean girl, she's pretty acclimated to the idea of being mean and bad, and to her, Lancer just seems like some little pissant trying to wear her pain like a novelty t-shirt, rather than the soul-etching suit of armor that it really is. Almost like he's mocking her for the crime of having issues. So she threatens to kill him, belts out a loud, definitely propped up evil laugh, to which he starts complimenting her and thanking her, and this confuses the fuck out of her. Whoever heard of a kid thanking you for trying to scare him? And the reason Lancer wasn't scared is because from his first appearance, he's made it abundantly clear that this is all a game to him. The only one serious about defeating the Lightners is the king. Everybody else is either being underpaid to kill you or just doesn't care. It's stated outright later, but Lancer is in a similar position as Susie and KRIS. He's the weird kid who people don't really hang out with for being weird. So when some new people come down into the Dark World, even though he's been told he shouldn't interact with them, he still does. Because when he sees Susie and KRIS, he doesn't see enemies, he sees potential friends. And when he's friendly to Susie, she just kinda backs off. She's like, okay, that wasn't entirely terrible. Then things come to a head whenever they fight C-Round. Susie continues to attack despite the IV of almond milk permanently attached to this guy, and Rouse tells her that all she's doing is making things worse. Her constant escalation has been hurting more than it's helped. I've largely been explaining Susie's actions in a positive light here, but this is bad. Really bad, actually. Because even if you're reeling from some serious fuck shit you've gone through, nothing will ever give you the green light to just beat the fuck out of people who can and should be talked down. Hurt people can hurt people. We all know this to be true, but it's important to remember that that's an explanation, not an annulment. And like with a lot of people in her situation, she's aware of this. It's easy to think that everyone's out to get you. It's easy to just never talk to anyone and have it in your head that you'll be alone forever. It's easy to think that if you just drive everyone away, you won't ever be hurt. But that's not true. Everyone needs love in their life, and so does Susie. So when she's faced with the reality that doing nothing but drive people away will leave her alone for the rest of her life, She instead focuses on the part where Rouse says for her to act like a hero, that she should do the thing he's telling her to do, and says, "You know what, fuck this, Lancer, let's go get some smoothies." And it makes sense that she'd switch onto his team. One, despite Rouse, and two, because he's closer to being mean than Green SpongeBob and coin-operated Smurf over here. And then they just become Team Rocket?
Prepare for trouble!
Make it double!
They're so fucking cute together, oh my god. As I rifled through the chapter more, I realized something. See, Susie characterized the prophecy, and KRIS going along with Rouse as them playing pretend earlier. Now, she's doing the same thing, but she's playing pretend in her own way, as the villain. She's not at all committed to genuinely harming these weenies. I mean, you can't even die to her in Lancer, but she'll play the role of evil bad guy just to have fun doing what she wants to do. In a way, she's fully gotten into the vibe. It's not just about going home anymore. It's about hanging out with her new friend. And seeing as this is her first friend in a long time, she's velcroed herself to him. And also she's teaching him swears. She's even worried about him when they get lost in the maze. Oh my god, this is fucking delightful. Something critical here, so after they form their villain team, Rouse backs off a bit. You'll notice that his dialogue is more so asking about their evil plan, pretending to be their foil, playing along with them. He knows he was right to say what he said, but he also knows that sometimes the raw, unadulterated truth can hurt more than it helps. Instead of deciding to do something else, he adopts a more, "I'll be here when you're ready" approach. And he even accepts Lancer joining the team later because, well, fucking look at him, he couldn't hurt a paper cup. Another thing I realized while writing here is that Susie's preferred form of enrichment is fighting. See, this ties in with her bad kid facade not totally being a facade. Susie isn't really bad, she's just rough and tumble. Subtract the bad kid label and she's still the kind who will tussle for fun. And this is a healthy outlet for her. I mean, it's not the best, she kind of forces you to fight her, but it's in a controlled environment wherein she doesn't intend to seriously hurt someone, and ends the fight whenever someone does get their shit rocked. After Lancer joins the team, they get to talking. This is the best part in any character-based story, by the way. The scene where they have nothing to do but talk, so that's exactly what they do. Susie starts speaking more openly about how she likes being in this world. More accurately, with Lancer. Rouse correctly identifies that she feels happy. At first she brushes them off, but then admits that, yeah, she's feeling happy. She's warming up to Rouse little by little, now that he's not issuing her commands. Lancer is anxious about them finding the king, so he tells them he has to run away forever. Susie, not content to lose her first friend in what feels like forever, chases after him, and then she's thrown in jail. After kindly inviting a guard to peep the trash can, 2 bed, 3 bath, that's such a low price, sign me right up, she gets help solving a puzzle and heads out. And then she overhears Lancer telling his guards to keep them all locked down there. She hears this, and she's shocked. Betrayal washes over her. It's happening again. It's happening again. And of course it is. Because why would anybody really want to be her friend anyway? Who wants to be friends with the wretched, horrible Susie? It had to be. It had to be another cruel joke. Because that's what it always is. That's what it's always been. She slips back into this mindset, the one stating that she is objectively unlovable. That's why she says it's fine immediately after, why she seems to almost instantly recover. Because it's easy to think that things could never change, that they'll always stay the same. No one liking the bad kid is normal, so she should never expect anything else. Not in here, not out there, not anywhere she moves to. And when people mess with the bad kid, she reminds everyone why she's the bad kid. The music tenses. Susie demands that Lancer get out of her way, and Lancer refuses. So Susie attacks. Lancer responds in kind, but he can't bring himself to hurt her seriously, so after a certain point, he starts missing. Susie's attacks hit harder. The tension bar keeps rising with every strike. Lancer wants to explain, but he never got the chance to. But the reason he's keeping her down here is so she and her father don't end up killing one another. In his eyes, he can't just move out of her way, so he just lets her attack him for the time being, because this is better than letting her go. And even as she says the nastiest, most heinous things to his face, that she doesn't care whether he lives or dies, that she'll kill him dead where he stands. Because to him, it's better for everyone if he gets knocked down while trying to save them both. Susie hates this situation she's in. She hates how she's been tricked. She hates how Lancer was her friend, and she hates how he did this to her. She hates how her heart feels like it's going to explode out of her chest. And primed for her final attack, Susie misses. Try as she might to convince herself, try as she might to take vengeance on the one who hurt her, she can't. Lancer was her first friend in a long time. And even though she's angry and violent and spiteful, Her heart is simply too big to let her hurt her friend that badly. She pleads with him to get out of her way. She doesn't want to kill him. Lancer finally explains himself, and she takes a moment to think. I'd imagine she's relieved, and worried, and guilty, and feeling something she can't quite explain. Lancer tried to save her. He tried to save her. She tells him she'll talk things out with his dad. Lancer asks if they're still friends. And Susie says yes. There is one small problem, though. De-escalation is not her forte. However, the Weenie Squad is great at de-escalation. You know, a root canal would be less annoying for her to deal with right now. Susie asks for them to teach her how to act, and later on admits to KRIS that Ralsei was right. Obstinance has only ever made things worse on this trek, and Susie knows herself well enough to know that being outwardly nice is not something she has experience in. So she tells KRIS, I'll trust you. And this is a big moment for her. Up until today, she didn't have any friends. Then, when explicitly faced with the reality that someone cared enough to keep her out of harm's way, to make sure no one hurt her, she reassessed a few things. Ralsei was right before, but maybe he wasn't being an asshole about it. Maybe he really was trying to be her friend. Maybe his spongy kindness was just that. Kindness. And maybe he told her to start acting like a hero because he sees something heroic in her. And KRIS hasn't said a single negative thing to her all day. They haven't put her down, and depending on how you've played, you've only ever issued one command to her. And if you're playing correctly, at every turn they've been committed to causing the least harm to everyone here, including Susie. And she thinks maybe she was wrong about it earlier today. Maybe they wouldn't try and get her in trouble for stealing. I mean, they haven't really cared about anything else she's done, except for when she's hurting people. So while trusting these two is uncharted territory for her, and she's not entirely sure that it will turn out okay, she relents. She trusts KRIS, and she trusts Ralsei to help her through this. She loosens her suit of thorns, and says, I'm counting on you. Okay? What follows is you meandering around Card Castle while Ralsei and KRIS coach Susie through complimenting and flirting with people. And then we have some really cute and funny interactions between them all. This, like a lot of other scenes of Susie just being fucking cute, is delightful. And then we get to see the most magnificent thing to ever come out of this entire game series. Susie's idea.
Susie's idea!
See, Susie remembers from last time that the only way to get this guy off their asses is to make him a non-threat. And that crown is the only thing making him a threat, so the crown needs to come off for them to progress. So obviously the best solution is to throw Ralsei and hope he dislodges the crown from its head. And it succeeds. In doing this, she comes to realize there's a million ways to skin a cat. Sometimes you have to beat ass, and sometimes you need to throw Ralsei. This is compounded on by the scene where they meet up with the king, and when he threatens Lancer, she's instantly on the attack, and she yields when he threatens to kill him. Then, once he's safely out of the way, she tries to reason with him before realizing that the tyrannical king being unreasonable is a foregone conclusion. For the first time, the fuck squad is approaching a situation that is completely impossible to de-escalate. The king is absolutely committed to being as unreasonable as humanly possible. He is hellbent on hurting you. So what do you do in a situation such as this? Well, it's what you should do with all real-life tyrants. You beat the ever-loving shit out of them. It's possible to get through the fight without hurting him. I mean, he like busts his hip or something, and then you just kind of stop. But it doesn't really matter whether you do or don't, so you're free to just red buster him into oblivion. Get overthrown, dick snipe. Oh, speaking of which, I forgot to talk about Rude Buster. The only magic Susie has on her is Rude Buster. It's a move that does a metric fuckton and an imperial 2,204.6 gigafricks of damage. It's described as rude energy and uses a lot of TP. I interpret this as tensions getting so high that Susie gains the adrenaline necessary to dish out the magical equivalent of a haymaker. This, alongside her naturally high HP and high attack, cements her as the party's bruiser. That's really the most important part here. She's the bruiser for the party. Susie's a very violent person, and she's like that to protect herself from the people who only want to hurt her. And while that certainly helps with some situations, in the scene immediately preceding this, she states the crucial flaw with that way of thinking. There's some people you just gotta fight. But if you never let your guard down, you might just end up hurting someone you care about. Susie and Ralsei come to a better understanding of each other here. Kindness doesn't always win, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't try. Though she doesn't say it, Susie realizes that if she's going to fight, it's not just going to be for her protection anymore. It will be for KRIS's, and Ralsei's, and Lancer's. The ones who save her, who lead her through the dark. The The ones who heal her when she's hurt. The ones who see nothing but the good in her, and the goodness she can inflict upon the world. The ones who love her, and the ones who she loves. After saying a quick goodbye to everyone, they go and seal the fountain. They come to in the unfinished classroom, wondering if any of that was even real. Susie's trying to be nonchalant about it, subconsciously seeing herself back at school where she has to put up a front. But she doesn't have to put up a front right now. Does she? No one's here. It's just her and KRIS. She wants to say something, so she does. Let's go back there tomorrow, right? Hey, no, what the f? No, not that one. It's the other one. I know they sound similar, but it's the other one. In Chapter 2, Susie's mood has noticeably improved. She's at school on time, she talks to KRIS, she even replies to Alphys and makes a joke. And most importantly, she's smiling. She's happy. After class, she almost immediately drags KRIS back to the closet to see their other remaining friends. For a brief moment, she wonders if they'll still be friends if there's nothing inside. Concluding that doesn't matter, she tries to rip it open when Noelle and her big fat lesbian girl crush make themselves known. This is completely incomprehensible to Susie because she's only ever had new friends for about 16 hours, and she's still kinda new to the idea that people can like her before being her friend. You know, non-Dark World people. She doesn't want her involved in Dark World business because, in her eyes, it's just her and KRIS's thing. Just for them and no one else. Speaking of being new to kindness, she spends a lot of her time in Castletown making little jokey barbs at KRIS and Lancer and Rouse. It's her way of showing them she cares. They all know she's not genuinely insulting them, so it's all good. She's being given so much here. She's been given so much ever since she came down here. And the knowledge of that is hitting her square in the face. Look at how she prized she is at the thought of having her own room to be in. Like, dude, Rouse made her a whole room. Just because he likes her so much. Anyway, after Rouse kicks them out, demanding that they get their schoolwork done, and all of these other guys come along. Hey dudes, get out of here, guys, stop! They head over to the computer lab for some space pinball and discover that this is actually Deltarune 2. So she grabs her requisite NB and jumps inside, just in time to see Noelle get kidnapped and... I'm trying so hard not to write 18 entire pages on how much I absolutely adore this fucking laptop. No, really, Chapter 2 is literally the best chapter in the entire game. It hits every mark, it is by far the funniest, it has some of the best tracks, including one which I would consider one of, if not Toby's best work, and I can't talk about it at all because I have to focus on Susie guitar, oh my goodness. Anyway, she whisks Noelle off to somewhere that isn't here and throws some extension cords at us. We fight him, meet up with the goat, and descend into the cyberworld on a quest to find that nervous deer girl. I feel like I should talk about the music here because it relates back to my main point. See, when I first listened to this track, I knew that I felt something when I heard it, I just didn't know what that feeling was. Then I replayed Miitopia and got to Next Door, and I was like, oh, okay. I got the same vibe from A Cyber's World that I did from the Next Door theme. The distinct impression that at any moment, one member of the party would turn and say, there's no one I'd rather trudge through the desert with than you guys. And that's the impression I got from A Cyber's World. But Susie's thinking, there's no one I'd rather explore a dark world with. Nobody I'd rather be here having fun with right now. And I love that. I'm fully prepared to admit that this next thing is just a me thing, but I have a small critique of Deltarune to get out of the way. Don't worry, I'm going somewhere with this. See, Chapter 1 in many ways was just Undertale again, but with updated graphics, battle systems, and textures. The non-lethal routes of the game involve you acting and then sparing someone, just like last time. Thing is, though, you're alone in Undertale. In Deltarune, KRIS can get downed, meaning the battle is harder to end at a non-lethal route. I mean, you can just hit them and then use Pacify, but what the fuck happens if you've only got Susie left? She doesn't have any magic other than Rude Buster. She can't end the fight any other way than beating ass. Which means you've got to wait for either KRIS or Rouse to wake up so you can end it the proper way. Sure, it can be an interesting bit of gameplay, but if you're like me and you're a stickler for the pacifist route, you just want to act the whole time. Simply put, having KRIS be the only one with the ability to act was a bit of a hindrance to me. Luckily, Toby seemed to realize this and, like writers do, had a brilliant idea to remedy it. See, Susie this entire time had been uncontrollable. Or rather, she is, but only of her own accord. No one can ever force her to do anything she doesn't want to do. Short of threatening her friends, you cannot force her hand. You cannot make her play by your rules. So when they get to the Sweet Cap and Cakes fight and the established rules fail multiple times in a row, she's like, hang on, what the fuck are we doing? And then starts doing the fucking Peanuts dance. Much to Rouse's chagrin. And this works. You'll notice a pattern of Susie's ideas almost always working. She makes the entire party able to act, which opens up new battle strategies. Now you can have KRIS doing something else while the others whittle down the mercy meter. Or if you suck at KRIS's mercy minigames, you can have people just act and whittle it down that way. This is great, I like it a bunch. Susie changes the rules of the game, because like I said, you can't really force her to do something she doesn't want to do, including playing the game as it's been written. She does this again again whenever you're given the option to go with either Susie or Rase. She's all like, bro, why do you keep asking KRIS to do stuff for us like they're an RPG protagonist? Come on, Rase, let's go get some smoothies. Wow, you're really gonna use the same joke twice? Yes. Fuck you. While KRIS and Noelle gallivant off into some mice and maybe a murder or two, Susie and Rase talk about stuff, including healing magic. Rase teaches Susie how to heal. She's still pretty new at it, so it doesn't do much, and it takes all of your TP, but she still heals you. Like with all the magic in Deltarune, I think this is a metaphor. See, Rase's entire character is predicated on servitude. He serves you no matter what, and that's reflected in his ability to heal you. Because what does healing someone else do for you? Nothing. It does nothing for you. It's about the person who you're trying to heal. Noelle also has a heal prayer because she's similarly the type to serve her friends when they need/wanted. And that's because she's just a really nice girl and she loves her friends. And Susie already wants to help her friends, to serve her friends. So it makes sense that she would start learning now. It's like watching someone who's never been hugged before learn how to pat her friends on the head. It's cute. And just like something like that, it takes a lot of effort. It's an uphill battle to be nice without layers of irony when you're someone like Susie. Hell, take a look at the Ferris wheel conversation. This is the face and dialogue of someone trying to have a regular conversation like a regular person, when their only frame of reference for genuine kindness is, you're unbanned from free ham sandwich day. And it's nice to see her doing this. It's nice to see her break into new territory like this. New beginnings are a big theme in Deltarune, and that's incredibly evident with Susie. After they all get together, Queen comes up and is like, help me end the world, or I'm going to kill that bluebird you like so much. And then the bluebird she likes so much walks up and she's like, oh, fuck, and just throws you all in cages. And then we play the Lancer card. Ah, fuck, the ink's rubbed off. Rase might have some touch-up paint though. And, oh, it's Birdly. Remember how I used him as a graphic for a pompous dick? Yeah, Susie really does not like Birdly. It's probably because he won't shut up about how smart he is and how dumb Susie is. Like, bro's not doing himself any favors. She begrudgingly lets him come along as long as he shuts the fuck up, because a big theme with Birdly is that even though he's the annoying kid who no one likes, you can't just leave him to die because his only real crime is, well, being the annoying kid who no one likes. When he's all like, I could have solved that puzzle no problem, Susie's just like,
Do it.
see, Susie's testing Birdly here because she's wanted to watch someone like him flounder for the longest time. Some prick who thinks they're oh so much better than everyone else thoroughly eats shit on the pavement. This is augmented by the third puzzle, which she solves in seconds. You're not special, she says. And then she learns just how not special he is. Going back over Birdly's backstory, I'm actually drawing some parallels between the two. I mean, Susie was neglected and reviled by most, and Birdly was only one of those things. Speaking as somebody who has been thoroughly neglected for a lot of their life, Birdly is absolutely right here. Once people know you for something, you put all stock into that thing that made them pay attention to you in the first place. Susie's kinda going through the same thing. Before, she had no one. And now she's a hero who has friends. So she'll keep being a hero if it means she has friends. And also, she just kinda likes being a hero. She doesn't realize this though. If anything, she just has another view of him beyond smart dipshit. Instead coming at him from an angle of, look, I don't like you, but you don't have to keep pretending to be an uber mega smarty pants all the time. It's literally not that deep. And then he goes, I'll go be a dumbass like you guys. And then she's like, motherfucker, that's a whole new sentence. Anyway, she tentatively goes along with the plan to save Noelle, and hey, quick question, why does Susie care about Noelle? Well, that's because back when Susie first came to hometown, Noelle smiled at her and offered her a candy cane pencil. That deer saw that lizard and thought wife. Actually, more accurately, that deer saw that lizard and was immediately overcome with the desire to be her friend. And just like KRIS, she decided Noelle was cool. Not passively cool, but actively cool. She would never talk to her, at least not back then, but she decided to direct her ire away from her for her kindness. Then they get to talking, and we get a good look at an aspect of Susie's character I touched on earlier, that being her autonomy. There's multiple points where you're asked to make a decision for Susie, but she's so far away from KRIS that she can't hear the demands. And even if she could, it's not set in stone that she would follow them. That's something that's always been present in Susie's character in every chapter. How freedom and autonomy is a big theme in Chapter 2 itself. And it's interesting to see, given the 35 puppets dangling around her at any given moment. There's so many vessels and vessels within puppets and themes about how fate is unbreakable except for when it isn't, and she is definitely going to fit into that somewhere. It's literally stated in the text, but unfortunately we're not there yet. Also, this might be an unpopular opinion, but I can't read the Ferris wheel ride as romantic. Well, at least not only as romantic. I read this as them starting to become better friends with one another. I say that probably because I love platonic relationships more than romantic ones, but because of my pontifications on that, I can also see that Noelle's desire for romance with Susie, like with most crushes, is predicated on her wanting to be closer first and foremost. I bet that Susie could straight up tell her they would never be an item, and Noelle would sulk about it for a bit, but she would still be grateful for their friendship. And Susie's open to that closer connection with her too. That's something we see a lot of with her in this chapter. She's trying. She's making an effort. We got snippets of that in Chapter 1, but it's expanded on here. And for her efforts, she's rewarded with another friend. Too bad she's about to fucking die. It's okay though, Susie gets a crit on that bitch. Okay, I was wrong about it being okay. And here we get what I think is our first glimpse at a big theme with Susie. When faced with a giant fuck off and kill everyone robot, she's still on the attack. She points her finger, and she tells her straight to her face, I don't care how big you are. I don't care how strong you are. I will knock you down. You will not hurt my friends. And even though her initial attempt fails, because of the connection she's made in this world, she ultimately succeeds. I mean, Noelle ultimately succeeds. Queen kind of random bullshit goes her way out of this one. She kind of random bullshit goes her way out of literally everything. Then everybody starts talking about how they really should just live in the dark world. They make so many friends, they won't have to worry about the assholes in real life, they get to be fantasy heroes, and no one's bossing them around. So, with all of their powers combined, they all decide to create a new fountain, a new world for them all to— What the fuck are you doing? Yeah, Rouse explains to them how that will just end the world. They all go, aw shit, and wake up where KRIS begs like a puppy for Susie to follow them around town. I couldn't find much here, but I think the fact that their friendship is persistent even outside of the dark world and the school shenanigans is pretty sweet. I've got more to say about that when we get to chapter 4. So yeah, there wasn't all that much to read into with chapter 2. I mean, there was 2 or 3 pages worth of analysis to read into, but nowhere near the 10 from last time. This is because chapter 2 sees Susie be a hero with so many people around her, which is great for someone like her, but at the same time, it just sees her having a fun day with her friends. I've already gleaned all the information I can out of that. She hangs out with KRIS after school, makes friends with Noelle, and then comes over for a sleepover. And, you know, I'm really glad that Toby Fox knows what he's got here. I'm glad that he's always put the characters ahead of the flashy new dark worlds, or cool new game features, or deep lore, or big themes, or anything like that. In a lot of ways, Deltarune isn't about saving the world and being a hero. Those aspects are certainly there, but the focus has always been about companionship. And it's certainly always been about hope. But that's something we'll get into later. Or we could get into it a little bit right now. The beginning, middle, and almost end of chapter 3 has a very interesting theme attached. It begins with a question. Why do you care about things that aren't real? And then it has Susie answer that question in the very same cutscene. And then the rest of the chapter is about that answer. So let's dive in. Susie and KRIS come to in the dark world. I wonder how it got here. They start walking around before Rouse summoned himself from the top of the screen like Tails in Sonic CD. Susie excitedly tells him all the fun shit they did after the dark world shenanigans, and talks to him like— well, a kid with internet access would talk to an Amish kid. You ever seen the kill count? Why are you counting them? And Susie sheepishly asks him if he would like to go to the festival in town in a couple of days. This is super out of character. And I love it. In chapters 3 and 4, we get to see Susie at her most vulnerable, her most sincere, and her most saccharine. And the way she asks this goat if he would like to go with her to an event, a public event no less, is— wow. One might call this unrealistic considering somebody as suspicious as Susie would probably need a few weeks to get it into her head that these guys are safe. But one, Deltarune has a set amount of chapters, and it needs to fit all of its story inside those chapters, so it can't be slow for the sake of realism. And 2, one could assume she learned that they were safe really quickly, and because she likes her friends a lot, and knows they wouldn't hurt her, at least not intentionally, she's way quicker to be nice to them. Her quality of life has improved so drastically in just these 2 days by being friends with these dorks, that her mood has almost completely shifted from what it used to be. Chapter 3 Susie is completely unrecognizable from chapter 1 Susie, and I think that's beautiful. But Rouse tells her he can't go. She asks why, and he explains the nature of darkness. See, darkness can't go to the light world because they aren't real. They're an illusion, birthed from the dark fountains. In reality, they're just inanimate objects. And he tells her that she shouldn't care about objects the same way she cares about real people. That if he, Lancer, and everyone else can't make her happy in all the ways she wants them to, she should just forget about them and make some real friends. And this pisses her off. She roars at him, the same way anyone like her would if their friend told them to just forget they were real and move on to something else. She tells him straight to his fucking face, it doesn't matter what he says he is, because he's real to her. Now, I want to talk about something. I know it's coming out of literally nowhere. I know this is probably a terrible place to put it. I know it's an incredibly unbrief tangent, but trust me, I am going somewhere with this. I really like this one theory about Deltarune I heard. I think it was from Game Theory. It was back in 2018, and it stated that the Dark World is essentially KRIS and Susie's play therapy. Sort of like a D&D session. 2 teenagers whose lives are so hard, deciding to turn off the lights and play pretend in the dark. I could see KRIS trying to get Susie to play with them by just having fun all on their own, and then Susie stealing away the Jack of Spades, trying to mess up their game, and then come around and being their friend. Because in playing with her, they made her feel good for the first time in a long time. They made her feel happy. Now with all that out of the way, let's go back to that question from earlier, and what Susie's answer means. Why do you care about things that aren't real? Well, It's because things that aren't real, things you can't reach out and touch, can make you feel absolutely wonderful. Take this video, for example. Susie is not a real person. There's not some lizard girl living in a monster town who goes down into dark worlds and saves the world in real life. She will never be real. She will never exist as a real person. But does that really matter? I still feel great when I think about her. I still feel hurt when she's hurt. I still feel hopeful that she'll be okay. And I still feel scared when it looks like she won't be. I feel so many things when I think about Susie, and that's why she matters to me. And I feel so many things when I think about Deltarune, and that's why it matters to me too. And that's why the Dark Worlds and Ralsei and Lancer and everything else matters to Susie. When she comes down into the Dark World, into this world of make-believe. She looks at Ralsei, she sees his smile, and she thinks, there's one of the first people to say hi, friendo, since I came here. There's the guy who I would move fucking mountains for. There's the guy who loved me at my worst, saw the best in me all the way through, and who I will be forever grateful for. There's my friend Ralsei. And speaking as someone who has had friends who have discounted their own existence and told me and others to just forget they exist, and find someone else to hang out with, this makes you feel mad. It actively makes Susie angry. How can you say you don't matter? How can you say you weren't real enough for me to care about you? I don't care if I can only see you in Wonderland. I don't care if you only appear when my eyes are shut. I don't care if I can't do anything with you that doesn't involve us being in the Dark World. You matter to me, and you always will. I'll never forget you. And as Ralsei struggles to take her aggressive loving, some TV fuckhead comes in and tells him to play some games. Still having almost no tolerance for the plot smashing in through the wall like the Kool-Aid Man. This is literally the third fucking time this has happened. Susie tells Tenna, I never signed up to be on Family Feud, dick sneeze. And then he wonders why everyone is so mean to him. Ralsei says something interesting, and this makes me think of a thing. See, Ralsei here is like a regular video game character, but with sentience. That might be the truest statement in the game, but I'm not here to discuss stuff like that. In this scenario, he'd be the sentient character, and Susie and KRIS are the players of the game, and the game is the Dark Worlds. And just like with regular video game characters, they can't do all the things a real-life friend could do with you. And Ralsei tells her, in not so many words, I'm sorry I can't do everything a real friend could do. I'm sorry I can't go to the festival or watch TV with you. But I want to have fun here, and I want you to have fun here. So maybe we could try playing his game? And yeah, that's all game characters can do with you. Really, you're limited to just talking and playing with them. Even though Ralsei is a degree above a video game character, by way of him being physically next to the others, she still can't take him into the light world. She can't take him out of her fantasies. So how much different is he really? And it'd be easy to say that she'll never have with him what she has with KRIS, but as of laid out, that's not really the case. Even if Ralsei was programmed to be her friend, just like Tenna was programmed to perform, Queen was programmed to serve, Spamton was programmed to leech away all of your money, and Lancer was programmed to be played with, he was still made to be her friend. So who cares if he's not real in a traditional sense? So, like many IRL friends would do, they sit down on some beanbags and play some video games, having fun all the while. Like I touched on in my Tenna video, this is ultimately a waste of time when it comes to the responsibility of sealing the fountain. But like, they're kids. And one of them is talking like they're going to be dead in a week. Of course they'll opt to spend time with each other rather than unplugging the metaphorical TV. Not Tenna, it's the one with the NES and stuff. It's the Dark Fountain. This metaphor fell apart. And they'll especially do it when Susie has to worry about school and the end of the world and all that other shit. This is evidenced by her conversation with Tenna later on. She thinks the game's cheered Ralsei up, and she also takes this as a break. By the end of the second round, she's a bit tired of the game. She agrees to play one more round for just a bit to appease Tenna, mainly because she sees a bit of herself in him. Because who would want the fun to end after a mundane, lonely life? Who wouldn't want people to hang out with? That is, until she finds out he's keeping secrets from them. Once she finds out, that kindness is completely gone. I talked about this last time, and this line really sold that aspect of her for me, but she hates it when people don't tell her things. She hates it when people hide things from her, and she hates it when people just refuse to communicate. I've been given the silent treatment a multitude of times by people twice my age and older when all I want is a straight fucking answer. And I'll tell you right now, it's the most infuriating thing in the goddamn universe. It pisses you off to no end. You'll end up putting a table through a wall, it pisses you off so much. Especially when you're lonely. Because somebody making the conscious choice to not talk to you can strike a pretty sensitive chord. So she says, fuck it, I'll find out on my own. And find out she does by finding Toriel. Okay, now all bets are off. Tenna fucking lied to her and kidnapped Toriel, and there's nothing he can say but, sorry, here's the goat back, that will quell her anger. Give me my friend, and let us go home Now, she says. And in response, Tenna traps them all because he can't let them leave just yet. After hitting the off button, they escape and get to do something that's been a minor goal of hers this entire time. Go on an actual adventure instead of playing video games. All the while, Tenna has a mental fucking breakdown. Near the end of their Dark World romp, we hear something utterly heartbreaking come from Susie. And it's in relation to the tiny nagging fact from Ralsei that this world isn't real. She slides back a bit, falling back into the old habit of thinking that she just can't have anything, can she? Of course it was fake. Of course it was like a dream. Sure, it's fun, and I still care, but it's a good thing I don't have to get my hopes up too high. And despite being a character defined by hopefulness, she finds calm in being hopeless. Because if you don't hope, you can't have that hope smashed to bits. If you don't expect anything, you can't be disappointed. It can be terrifying to hope for the best because of the dreaded what if. That being, what if it's too good to be true? What if it can't happen? And to find out that it kind of can't can be reassuring. Things aren't changing, and you don't really have to change with them. Susie's feeling a lot of contradictory things about her new friendships and the new mission to save the world. She cares, but she's relieved to find out it's all fake, but she's terrified she'll never spend time with them all again. So she's aware of the fact that it could all end horribly, but to a certain extent she doesn't care, because being friends with them is worth the risk, but it also might not be, but it also might not even matter because it might not be real, and all these thoughts are swirling around in her head like a whirlwind. But even if all the Dark World stuff turns out to be fake, even if it turns out to be the most unreal thing in the universe, it's important to remember two things. One, as stated earlier, she doesn't care. It matters to her, and that's all that needs to matter. And two, she has KRIS. Even if the Closet Dark World turned out to be nothing, they would have been friends regardless. Because KRIS isn't a Dark World entity. They're real in the sense that Susie, Birdley, and Noelle are real. And this scene really shows that. If for some horrible reason they had to seal every dark fountain forever, Susie would still have KRIS, a shining pillar of reality, and her very best friend. You're given a dialogue option here. I chose to tell her friendships were real, which granted me two ironic teenagers being ironic, but another dialogue option grants you this little sequence. I wondered why everyone was so enamored with this line, and now I think I know. Imagine being Susie all her life, or however many months or years she's lived in hometown. Now she's got her first friend, her first really good friend in forever, standing by her side. And she's piecing together that they could have been like this whole time. They could have been friends that whole time. They were right there. She was right there. And they spent so long not talking. And yeah, it's stupid. It's dumb that these two absolute besties were just ships passing in the night for so long when they could have been doing this the whole time. It's one of those fucked up things you just have to laugh about. You don't really mourn the potential of a relationship once it's already formed. You're more focused on being friends than anything else. After that scene, Susie is still fully on the attack. Tenna stands in the way of her saving the one woman who ever gave her the time of day before Noelle rode along. But in ending the battle, hearing what Tenna has to say about himself, and Ralsei's words on top, she steps forward and tells him that he's not junk. He's not irrelevant. They'll find him someone to entertain. We also get that backstory I went over earlier. Something here and in Chapter 4 is Susie's relationship with hope and hopelessness. I know I talked about it a minute ago, but I feel like this scene really shows just how irrational it can be to hope in a situation such as this. But you kinda have to if you don't want to be miserable. Susie has been drenched in hopelessness for her whole life, but she's persisted. Before, she didn't have any hope. Then, Toriel gave her a piece. A teeny tiny golden flake of hope, sitting at the bottom of her heart. And through playing in the dark with her friends, that hope grew. Her sense of outsidership isn't gone, but it's fading, because she found the right people. And even as Tenna's cut to ribbons in front of her, she goes out of her way to fix him up and give him away. I said last time that there's no happy ending for a broken TV, but that isn't entirely true. I only said that because most people throw them out, and even more people throw out old TVs just for being old. But with time, and dedication, and hope, and a little bit of luck, you can fix the broken TV. You can make it work again, and you can preserve its life for just a bit longer. Tenna was basically marked for death, and despite everything, Susie looked at him and said, I'm going to find you a place you belong. And if fucking Mettaton wasn't explicitly being fucking Mettaton, you wouldn't have had the faintest clue where to put him. And Susie doesn't even know who Mettaton is, but she doesn't care. She doesn't know who will get Tenna, and she doesn't agonize over it for even a second. She just says, someone's gotta want a TV. Everything working out here is a foregone conclusion to her. At the end of the chapter, after Undyne's been kidnapped, we see an aspect of Susie's sense of autonomy I haven't touched on all that much. As she pounds on the shelter door, another thing that ticks Susie off to no end makes itself apparent. Being powerless. She had no power over the life she led up until a certain point. So she decided to take power into her own hands, and became, not someone she necessarily wanted to be, but someone who she felt she had to be. In the adventures she has through Deltarune, she's given the power to be whoever she wants. Now that power's been stripped away. She was powerless to stop Tenna from being killed, and she was powerless to stop Undyne from being taken. Another wall has been thrust into her face. There's nothing she can do. There's nothing she can do right now. A panel falls off the door, and there's a spot to input 3 codes. Her powerlessness shrinks, and her hope grows. There's a chance. There's still a chance. She can still save Undyne, save the world even. But not now. For now, she needs to seal the fountain and make sure Tenna is okay. And even though it might feel like she is, she will absolutely not give up hope here. She remains determined to do what is right. She is filled with perseverance. Remember the 7 human souls? You know, kindness, justice, bravery, integrity, patience, perseverance, and determination? Well, those never stop being a thing, and they tie into Deltarune in a very interesting way. Looking back on everything from chapters 1 to 3, you notice that the most important figures in the game tend to line up with these attributes, and the threads connecting them are defined through color. Ralsei is a character defined by kindness, servitude, generally being nice, and he's green. KRIS is incredibly patient, often letting things play out, letting you do whatever you think you need to do to get out of the Dark World, and only acting on their own accord whenever they deem it necessary. And there's Cyan. Noelle is heavily tied to themes about violence and justice. An entire segment of the game having to do with the perversion and the misuse of justice includes the justice motif from Your Best Nightmare, and requires Noelle to progress, and she's yellow. Then we get to Susie, the purple one, who this entire time has been overcoming adversity, climbing over hurdles, breaking through walls, spitting on the concept of not being able to do something, and keeping hope in her heart when things look their bleakest. Susie is defined by hope, yes, but she's also defined by something else. If you were to boil her down to one word, it wouldn't be hope. It would be perseverance. In the opening moments of Chapter 4, Susie laments having to go to church. I'm right there with her, that place fucking sucks. But she decides to grin and bear it for the sake of finding out how to get inside the shelter and save Undyne, and also the world. You get the opportunity to walk around the house a bit more, getting Susie's thoughts on stuff. And here's a neat bit of characterization I noticed. If you interact with the bloodstain on the corner, Susie at first looks horrified, but then she goes on about how to properly clean a bloodstain, and it becomes very clear the giant patches of blood are kinda normal to her. I love that, actually. I love that she's not actually scared at the appearance of blood on someone's floor. You ever had a really bad nosebleed? You'll make a white towel look like bloody murder. You will magnetize the damn thing with how much iron you let out. I'm going over the seemingly insignificant moment because there's a lot of them in Chapter 4. This is the Susie chapter, and the one that made me start making these videos at all. We get another outside the main temple, which informs us of why she's not particularly into church. The churches she's been to were your typical deal, which means they were horrible and tended to focus on the "you will never be good enough" parts of the faith. And they picked on Susie specifically for not instantly getting something right. She notices a distinct lack of venom in this room, though, even calling this place tolerant. And there's juice. I mean, you can't argue with juice. So she'll stick around a bit longer. After church, she asks to come over to Noelle's place, leaves, and then you can go do all sorts of cute shit. When you go into the school Dark World, Susie decides to see what Ralsei's room looks like. When she dashes into his room and finds it completely barren, she's at a loss. She knew that it was bad, but she didn't know that it was this bad. This goes beyond just regular selflessness. This speaks to an active loathing of the self. She doesn't know why he feels like this, and she decides she doesn't need to. She says that him feeling like he matters so little that he shouldn't get a room in his own goddamn house is the stupidest thing in the world. Especially when we're talking about Ralsei. Not only does he deserve basic fucking living arrangements, he deserves the whole entire world. So, Susie decides that she'll fill up his room with stuff. Like every other wall she's been presented, she will break through Ralsei's self-loathing no matter what. She will make him like himself, and she's already making pretty good stride on that. Anyway, before that happens, we get to see KRIS, Susie, and Ralsei have a tea party, where Susie talks about how it's nice that she doesn't have to be in survival mode all the time. It's like I touched on last time, she's been given the power to be whoever she wants to be, and who she wants to be is, well, whoever she is when she's not putting up a front. She's finding her footing, and she's got a good support system. After that, they hit up Mettaton, give away Tenna, and head over to Noelle's, wherein Susie furthers her track record of muscling her friends into being the best versions of themselves they can possibly be. While KRIS drinks like Toriel after one too many interactions with Asgore, man, the apple really does not fall far from the tree, does it? Susie and Noelle continue to be fucking adorable with one another. The dialogue here feels really organic, like you're spectating someone's life, which you are. Anyway, while I won't write 16 more paragraphs about it, it's still nice to see her loving life. After Carol comes in and violently indokes her homophobia, they dip and head over to the church where, oh god fucking damn it, Des! Usually Susie's really gung-ho about Dark World shenanigans, but this is church. On church day. Presumably with people inside. The knight just keeps endangering people's lives, smiles about it, and then runs away. Pissed off and ready to kick bubblegum and chew ass, she delves inside. They take note of how odd the place is, get their asses beat, and meet up with Rouse, who's acting weird. Very, very weird. He seems eager for them to get a move on, and isn't explaining why. As you walk through the Dark Sanctuary, it immediately marks itself with a single word. If you were to reduce it down to one phrase, it would be respect. This is the most important Dark World we've seen so far, because it's explicitly about the prophecy. It's the Dark World with the most relation to the existence of the Dark and Light world's dichotomy. It looks so serious that our main trio doesn't even look like they belong here. As they pass glass tapestries, Susie takes note of how the prophecy looks a bit different from what Rouse described. He skirts around this by stating he gave more of a summary, but if you have eyes, you can tell that he's hiding something. Fuck, when is he ever not hiding something? We'll talk about that in a bit. They trudge through the Dark World a bit more, finding some sort of strange shadowy boogin man, and then... Bruce Johnson? Meet Gerson Boom, the funniest man over the age of 60 that you will ever meet. And the kind of guy who's too old to have problems with anyone. Also, he's a zombie. See, Gerson does something really interesting when he meets Susie. In the Undertale universe, he served as a sort of role model for Undyne. By way of being so impossibly himself, he inspired her to be a fierce warrior. When the Hammer of Justice went out of commission, the Spear of Justice continued its legacy, the crushing force of one paving the way for the piercing force of another. Gerson sadly died before he could influence Undyne in this universe. But in his reanimated state, he can still influence another young hero. We first see this when he asks Susie to grab him a book. She declines at first, and Rouse offers to help, but when Gerson asks her once more, she begrudgingly picks it out for him. Given that the book is the only thing out of place in this shot, and Gerson is more perceptive than he lets on, I think he figured out the puzzle and tricked her into solving it as a test. She was rude to him at first, but quickly showed herself to be the kind to do good, even if it inconveniences her a bit. In addition to being the king of just being able to do that, he's also the kind of vague mentor that messes with you because it's funny, a la Phoenix Wright in Apollo Justice. He fucks with you, but by the end of it, your life is marginally better. A good example of this is when he leads the gang all over Hell's Half-Acre, prompting Susie to go, you know what, we are absolutely never visiting your study, old man. And then he's like, alright, and the very next room is his study. Susie keeps getting absolutely clowned on by this old man, and it's great. The reason she's so untrustworthy of this guy is because, well, multiple adults have burned her in the past, so she's preemptively hostile to possible threats. After she proves himself to be the opposite of a threat, though, she's hostile because of his annoying old man shtick. But he's already cemented himself in her mind as not a threat, and soon enough, she'll probably be laughing about his aforementioned old man shtick. After a few more puzzles, Susie starts questioning Rouse on why he didn't tell us the answer. I mean, if he knows the whole thing, he probably should have said so, right? And then he says it's better if he doesn't say anything. And when she bluntly asks him why, he deflects by accidentally wily coyoting them off a bookshelf. Didn't mention it earlier, but when Susie and KRIS first fell into the Dark World, she attempted to heal KRIS, but then Rouse came in and told her not to try to help on her own. And here, he's just healed KRIS again after Susie tried once more to help. The description for her healing magic now says, it seems the user doesn't want to use this spell. Rouse isn't trying to be mean here, but he's also not explaining just why he's so focused on being the one to heal everyone. In Chapter 4, he's a lot more servile, literally stating by the end of it that he just wants to do everything for them. But Susie doesn't know that, so she's just led to assume that he's doing it because she's worse at healing than he is. Not to say that he's flaunting his heightened capabilities, but that because she is objectively worse at healing, even if she likes doing it, and even if it makes sense that she wouldn't be a master from the get-go, she shouldn't try. You can see how this sends her back into that spiral I keep talking about. Her consideration of remaining the Susie hometown knows versus the Susie that she is. She says she ought to stick to the magic that hurts because that's what she's good at. That's what keeps being reinforced by literally everyone but her best friends. And, like with every other instance of her starting up at her self-loathing spiral again, someone comes around to pull her out of it. Gerson, after she tells him this, decides to call her a coward. Not to insult her for the sake of insulting her, but to do what he does best. Light a fire in people. He pisses her off into trying to heal a prick he got on his finger, and when she casts it, he conveniently drops his letter, which just so happens to make the green sparkly fly into and heal Jackenstein. New Deltarune headcanon, the only reason Gerson's dead in this world is because he's a pro 5D chess player and would have ended the game by chapter 1. The man simultaneously motivated Susie, made her heal up the himbo, cemented himself in Susie's head as the funny old man who's great at messing with you, but actually really loves you, and did it all while fucking with people for a larf. I love this 78-year-old turtle. Now armed with evidence that her healing isn't completely fucking useless, she's feeling a lot better about herself. I feel like this, again, feeds into the magic metaphor stuff I keep yammering on about. Ralsei has always been better at being nice because he's a naturally nice person, whereas Susie, for the longest time, had to drive people away by being mean. So being nice is hard for her. She still yells a bit at Noelle in chapter 2, but the awkwardness of their interactions completely dissipates once they get the conversation going in chapter 4. She's getting better at being kind. This is reflected on how the TP cost for her OK heal costs less and less the more she uses it. I have some real-world experience in this. After a while, I started randomly complimenting people on the street whenever I liked their look. It was hard at first, but once you get into the groove of being nice, it becomes that much easier. Same thing with my friends. It took me a very long, very uncomfortable time to start openly saying I love you to all of my friends. And even now, it's still something I have to lightly force myself to do. But like, I do love them, and they should know that. And it makes you feel good because it's nice to be nice. Anyway, later on they have some tea, where, like with all of Susie's budding friendships, she decides that the old man is okay. Maybe even alright. Possibly even a little cool. I mean, you'd like it if Bruce Johnson made you tea. Something I noticed here is that Susie's getting her first taste of what it's like to have a good parental figure in her life. Arguably, you could claim that Toriel was the first, but I think it's more apparent with Gerson. See, Susie's parents are bad. Bad enough for her to not tell them that she's staying over at KRIS's house, and bad enough for her to not even tell them where she is. And given everything else, there's only 3 good adults in her life at this point, and she only really trusts 2 of them. And Gerson is one of those old people. The kind to treat everyone as his own. The kind of guy who you'd spend one afternoon with and come away with the feeling that you've known him your whole life. So, yeah, Susie's got a grandpa now. Later on, she even says that he's the first person to ever teach her something without making her feel like an idiot. After writing down the notes on the wall, she notices KRIS is hesitating to play. They're doing this for 2 reasons. 1, you don't know how to play piano, and 2, you're here at all. See, I subscribe to the theory that KRIS doesn't play piano for anyone but their most favorite people. That's why they always just slam a couple of keys whenever you're around. They don't know you when they consider you an annoyance at best and literally Satan at worst. But Susie is just special enough for them to play, despite your presence. It shows how much they've grown to matter to one another in just 3 days. Anyway, with that, the door is open and they're free to leave. That is if they didn't have a cool axe thing to find. Once you play a cool tune and head on over, Gerson's like, "Hey, this is a shop, not a charity," and offers her a trade. 1 haircut for 1 justice axe. She tries, and he dodges. And it becomes apparent to anyone who's been paying attention thus far that he is yet again fucking with her. By this point, he's seen her potential, and now he wants to see if she has what it takes to take the axe. Something I haven't touched on at all is Father Alvin, Gerson's son. Alvin loved his father, and wants to follow in his footsteps as best he can. He wants to preserve his legacy as a good preacher and a good teacher. Gerson, however, didn't go to church a lot. Not because he didn't like his son, but because he wanted Alvin to live his own life instead of focusing on his. This is evidenced by Susie's letter to Alvin halfway through the game. And that's Gerson's core philosophy. Living your own life and writing your own story. You know what I think the Justice Axe is? Even though it doesn't fit with Susie's, for lack of a better term, brush modus, I think it's Gerson's pen, and I think this fight is his final test for her. To prompt her to write her own stories and have the Justice Axe serve as a reminder to always, always, always do that. We can see that in his boss fight. It literally begins with Susie stating that the prophecy says she's a hero. He doesn't care for this and basically goes, yeah, how about the twist? And then he pulls out the fucking green soul. Sure, the book says you're a hero, but that's because you have to be heroic. You need to be strong enough to face danger head on. Now, seeing as you're probably pretty rusty from not playing Undertale for years, you probably took a little damage. So you try to heal and... Yeah, the pre-established rules don't apply here. Don't you remember, Gerson's the least likely person to follow a script. You're in his house now, and he keeps pulling out surprises. Surprises you can work around, but surprises nonetheless. Octadirectional arrows, a rude buster volley, the only healing coming from when you've raised your TP just enough. The hits getting softer and softer as you get weaker and weaker, spinning turtle shells. The rules have been thoroughly defenestrated in favor of Gerson's challenge. While you fight, he tells you about his book, Lord of the Hammer. Being based on the prophecy, it lines up to how the game has gone so far. When he goes over chapter 6, he states that the author never wrote it, that the pen laid there for the youth, by which he means Alvin, to write the next page, but he never did. But now that Susie's here, maybe she can. He says he sees a story burning in her. And I think this is because, similar to himself, she's a rule breaker. I mean, look at Gerson, he's a lightener, he's a darkener, he's dead, he's alive, he completely reworked the battle system, he only exists in one specific dark world, he's the only secret boss to not go insane with the Shadow Crystal. By all accounts, he should not be here, but he is. And by this point, you know how much of a rule breaker Susie is. I think she's still the only character to ever have been a party member, and an enemy. Gerson sees Susie as the dragon, defeated in Chapter 1. In this way, Susie was your first ever recruit. He asks her how she thinks, no, how she wants the story to end, and she tells him she doesn't want it to end. The good times should just go on forever. He laughs. As the story approaches its final pages, she's chosen to keep it going. He tells her that there is a way to keep it going, to reject the darkness of the book's back cover, a white pen called Hope. The battle closes with yet another one of Susie's ideas, Trick the Trickster. When she finally wins, after your no doubt 80th attempt, he says what's confirmed something I've believed ever since. See, I wasn't just flying by the seat of my pants when I said the color of each party member corresponds to the soul colors. Gerson specifically calls out her perseverance. Her getting better and better each time she played. Better and better with each cast of her healing magic. He wants her to keep trying. No matter what life throws at her, no matter how many roadblocks she faces, keep going. Practice anything enough times and it comes easily. Punch a wall enough times and it comes down. Like last time, the crushing force of one has paved the way for the cleaving force of another. The Justice Axe comes with no powers. It only raises your attack, and it comes with a tagline that you had to become stronger to get it. I won't go into the dual, triple, and quadruple meanings present all throughout Deltarune's language, but I will note how this version of becoming stronger involved no violence whatsoever. After the fight, Gerson gives them one more piece of wisdom pertaining to stories. Writing continuations is one thing, but you can also rewrite the story entirely. Dragon Blazers was a retelling of Lord of the Hammer, and Lord of the Hammer was a retelling of the Prophecy. And in each retelling, things were changed. People got upset, but it's precisely because the rewrite was interesting enough for them to get upset with. You know, this is probably why people just cannot stop making Pinocchio movies. He doesn't necessarily believe Susie is a hero, but that isn't because he doesn't like her. He just doesn't believe in the prophecy 100%. It is just a story after all, and whatever she ends up being, she'll be great. As they prepare to leave, Gerson tells Susie to take a letter up for him. Susie's characterized this whole excursion as a dream, and Gerson has interpreted this as Susie's dream. He knows he's dead, and he doesn't know exactly why he's been brought back inside some random girl's dream, but he decided he'd make the most of it in the only way he knew how, by being the biggest fucking troll in Toby Fox's entire ludography. He cheats the nature of the Dark World by sending Susie back with the memory of the letter and telling her to bring it to Paige in the Light World. They return to where they were and chase the knight all the way up until the Great Door, which they shut and lock. There's still a fountain to seal though, so they can't focus on that now. When they seal the fountain, upon discovering there's yet another Dark World in the Inner Temple, you begin looking for clues. Susie wonders where the old man is, excited to meet another friend who she can see outside the Dark World. And then she finds his ashes. She realizes that he was a darkener made from the dust of a lightener. She looks sad for a moment, but then laughs. Only he could get her that good. This feels like a good place to put this. The plaque in Alvin's office recontextualizes Susie's turn to hopefulness. See, Toriel is a devout member of the church, and as such, would probably have been told this quote from the former pastor. Hope comes to those who believe, and for those that cannot, may our hope shine so brightly that they too may keep shelter from the dark. And Toriel took that into her first major encounter with Susie. Her ironclad belief in hoping against hope that everything would be okay had at first shielded Susie from sinking further into hopelessness, and gave her the will to hope as well, which in turn encouraged her to persevere. Those two things are woven into every part of Deltarune, but like I said before, they are most prominent in her. In this part of the game, we can also see the piano story. This ties into her anxieties and subsequent shaking off of said anxieties about healing magic. On a more broad scale, Susie was always judged for her lack of skills, and summarily shamed for attempting to gain said skills. Like we touched on before, this was a part of her bad reputation. People can't ever let you not be the bad kid who no one likes, so they enforce that narrative as much as they shame you for it. And that coincided with her mind's broken logic of, I'm not good at this, someone else is better, I should stick to hurting people and let the good people be good at things I'm not good at. But that was then. This is now, after she's broken through that attitude. So she tells KRIS that if she knew they played piano a week ago, she'd hate them for it. But now, even despite her lack of skills, all she wants to do is hear them play. And this is the core of Susie. Beyond the suit of thorns, beyond the tough exterior, beyond the jokey barbs, beyond the awkwardness, beyond the words left unsaid, beneath everything lies an incredibly loving girl who, given the right circumstances, isn't afraid to say it out loud. She does walk this back a bit, prompting a dialogue option. The sweetest option here is to say, if you play too. Usually she would laugh and make a joke, but here she's just like, yeah, that sounds nice. Seeing nothing around, your only real recourse is to come back and try again tomorrow. i.e. in Chapter 5. But Susie has another idea. She thinks she knows how to open the door. Well, okay, she's not totally sure of that, but she just really wants to see Gerson again. So even though it seems highly counterproductive, and even though it's incredibly dangerous, and even though the chapter is almost over and you're about ready to close the book, she decides they should open up a Dark World. Something I need to talk about briefly is KRIS's weapon. Trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. KRIS's weapons are almost always writing utensils, and they're usually depicted in the Dark World as wielding a sword. Pen is mightier than the sword, har har har. Anyway, you can choose to either make KRIS attack enemies or spare them throughout the whole game. On a more meta level, I like to see these choices as you holding the pen and reading Deltarune like a book. You can choose to scratch out entire paragraphs, or you can choose to let them sit there unbothered. In this world, the pen effectively is the sword, so it would make sense if the sword was also the pen. Following Gerson's words, she stares the end of the book in its face, determined to rise above, to not let it end here. She clutches KRIS's knife, the fate of the story in her hands and her hands only, and plunges it into the earth. The bright white light of hope floods the room. A new dark fountain made. The story continues. From the get-go, something's weird. Susie says so herself. The colors are off. Definitely off. The music is backwards, and the fountain, in contrast to every fountain before, is flowing downward. See, I actually made a Tumblr post that I think explains the colors just a tear. When I was younger, I had an Xbox 360, and I loved playing Portal 2. One day, I accidentally kicked it or something, and some cables at the back came loose. I redid them, and to my bewilderment, the game ran fine, but the colors were off. The cyan was more of an indigo, and the orange was more of a limey yellow. I realized later on that the colors were weird because I accidentally fucked up the AV cables when I put them back in, leading me to the only logical conclusion for the color of Susie's Dark World. That being, she fucked up the AV cables of her Dark World while she was making it, which is totally a thing Susie would do. I read that as a joke, but no, it's actually the most true statement here. You think I knew how to plug AV cables in back then? No! And Susie didn't know what she was doing when she was making a Dark World either. She focused very briefly on what she wanted, which was a Dark World where she could see the old man again. That's where the determination came from. Everything else, though, she didn't think about. Let's contrast that with a Dark World that executes its goal perfectly, the TV world. It was made to be a distraction, and it distracted the lighters long enough to get the Night Over to come and kidnap Undyne. It is one of the most put together Dark Worlds in the entire game. This, though, it sorta just has to work with what it's been given. This new addendum is vague, it's hazy, it doesn't quite fit. It's trying to make sense of itself when the new author has just written, and then they opened up another fountain to find the old man. This is like the non-evil version of an AI trying to expand upon a text prompt. And then we hear it. One of the greatest songs in this entire chapter, and also one of the ones that shouldn't be as great as it is. Brief tangent, I have a webcomic which I'm releasing pages for, painfully slowly, sorry about that. And for some of those pages, I like to animate a little. And for some of those animations, I make music, and to make that music, I use beatbox. I'm intimately familiar with the process of slapping down notes and tweaking it until it just works, and then continuing. And to me, that's what the Second Sanctuary sounds like. It sounds like Susie opened up a music program with the only direction for the song in her head being Dark World music, and started slapping down notes. Maybe some pixel sounds over here, some strings there, definitely a drum beat, funky wee-woo sounds over here, and bam, Dark World music. This is why I love this song so much. I see myself in it quite a bit. I see Susie, lacking practically any musical skill, doing what she always does when it comes to music. Throwing shit together until it just works. And Second Sanctuary does just work. Aside from maybe the Third Sanctuary, it is the most just work song in the entire OST. Something interesting about the Second Sanctuary is that it is Susie's Dark World, but it also isn't. A philosopher tells you that this is just the other side as viewed from the lens of someone other than the knight. It's the story quite literally being viewed in a different light. Speaking of viewing stories, later on Susie sees something that kind of flies in the face of what Gerson said earlier. She sees a prophecy which she assumes is about her and gets really excited about it. It says she has hope crossing her heart, in a place where words tend to always pop back up no matter how many times you rip out the pages. And it's understandable that she would do this. Here's a question for you, fandom-brained bumper snatch. Don't you remember being in middle school, consuming only content about 10 to 15-year-olds being the special, and then freaking the fuck out, thinking that you too, lonely in your desk, might just be one of the special kids too, wishing desperately to be some kind of hero? That's what Susie's feeling right now. And it's compounded on by the fact that she's gone from never being picked for anything to being the hero of legend in her town's religion. Yeah, rewriting stories is cool. You know what's cooler? Being a prophesied hero from the fucking holy text. As they get to Gerson's study, it becomes immediately obvious that they are not going to find him. Sad as it is, you keep going forward, trailing behind the suit of armor. When it attacks Susie, she's hesitant to attack back. Surely this is another lesson, right? Another test, it has to be. But it's not. She keeps asking him why he doesn't remember her, why he's doing this at all. and his lack of an answer scares her. And as the suit primes to deal a lethal blow, KRIS comes to her aid. If you try and attack the old man, she refuses, and she actively stops you from attacking as well. This is a far cry from her previous behavior, and it shows just how much Gerson means to her. She tries to jog his memory by throwing out her healing spell, but in doing so, she sees it's just a suit of armor. And then Rousey comes to her aid. He tells her that that wasn't him, that darkness like Gerson can only appear in very specific darkness, and that he can't ever come to their castle town. He tells her she can never see him again, and not knowing how else to break it to her, he does it with a smile. And all of this, all of everything, straight up triggers her. She starts screaming at him about his complete lack of communication. First, she can't stay in the Dark World forever because that will end the world. Then nothing is real and it basically doesn't matter. And now her only positive adult influence is gone forever with no chance of coming back, and he knew all along. He deliberately chose not to tell her all of the details going in, and it's ate away at her each time it's happened because, as stated before, she hates it when people don't tell her things. And after so many instances of somebody who is supposed to be her friend seemingly glancing at the concept of telling her the truth and turning up his nose, she has fucking had it. She literally roars at him that if he knows so much, if he knows how it all goes, if he has information that would save her from wasting her time, her hope, her energy, then he should just fucking tell them. And given that this is the first time any of his friends have been openly angry with him, he breaks down. He tells her that he knows a lot of things, but he never told her not because he didn't care, but because he didn't know when to say them, and he didn't want to hurt her, and he doesn't want to know, but he does. Rousey is a person who tries to seem like he's always on top of things, but in reality he's just a kid with arcane knowledge. He doesn't know what he's doing. This is the first time he's ever had friends, so of course he'd want to keep them safe from, well, everything, including knowledge that would hurt them. He interprets keeping them safe as keeping them ignorant of the horrors. We don't know what he knows, but it's a very clearly information that writhes through his heart like an earthworm made of razor wire. It kills him to know so much about the prophecy, and he says it himself. Knowing so much hurts. And if anyone's going to hurt, it should be the least important person in his life, himself. Susie identifies this as the reason for his odd behavior today. He's trying to keep them from seeing the ending of the prophecy because he thinks it would cut them too deeply. And part of this is because he doesn't want to say so much that it freaks them out, to know so much that it's scary. And seeing how horrified he is at the thought of them seeing the finale, she backs off. She's not really angry anymore because, while she doesn't have all the information she wants, she sees that trying to get it would absolutely shatter him. She knows enough to know to not press him. What she can do, though, is what she's good at. She tells him he can go ahead when he needs to, but they're still an unbreakable team. Rousey laughs, wipes his tears, and vows to be more honest. He can't say everything, but he can say some things. They seal the second fountain and open the door to the inner sanctum. After confronting the knight, they face their strongest enemy to date. A Titan, described by Rousey as the fear of the dark. Susie tries to talk a big game, but not many people can be brave against the original fear, so they fight. And right when it looks like they're about to win, the Titan begins to regenerate. Rousey doesn't know how to stop it, so he supposes that they'll just keep fighting. And then out of nowhere, Gerson rips himself from the grave again to beat ass. Bro felt a disturbance in the force and said, "Aight, let's throw hands!" A new act has appeared, Duel Buster. This one really shows what I'm talking about when I say Susie embodies perseverance. Here's the most fearful force on Earth, the original fear of the unknown staring her in the face, and she, with help from her friends, has the courage, the determination, the perseverant force of will to beat the ever-loving shit out of him. And it works more than anything else has so far, but it's not enough. You know what is enough though? Fucking Susie's idea! And like fucking always, Susie's idea absolutely trounces the Titan. This absolute random bullshit ghost stunt wins without question. After the fight, in looking for Gerson, Susie accidentally comes upon the final prophecy. The thing Rousey has been so deathly terrified of this entire time. We don't know what it was, but I'm almost certain that it was another roadblock. Another thing in her way, and something threatening her friend specifically. And in response, she laughs. Really? That's what the big, shocking ending was? Something else trying to take me away from you? She's had to deal with so many things threatening her, so many things trying to break her, trying to erode her sense of hope. and her sense of love. And by this point, she's grown so accustomed to these threats being so utterly ineffectual, and she can't help but laugh. If she saw this 3 days ago, she'd be devastated. Now, nothing can stop her. Like before, everything working out is just how she's decided things will happen. It doesn't matter what seemingly irreversible event has or will take place. Susie quite literally made a dark world just to see her friends again. She's willing to momentarily put the fate of existence in jeopardy for the people she loves. If that doesn't convince you that she will stop at nothing to be with them, then I don't know what will. At the fountain, we get another moment where Susie speaks openly. She says she has a stupid dream. That every day, they can keep being friends forever. That they can keep having fun, hanging out, and going back to the way things were, for infinity. At the end of the chapter, Susie wonders. She knows she'll do whatever it takes to make sure the ending never comes to pass, but the seed of doubt still aches in her heart. What if tenacity isn't enough? Whatever. It's late. She'll think about being a hero tomorrow. Thank you for making it to the end of this monstrous project. It's finally done, thank fuck. Now I can go and work on something else. This was very fun to make, and I hope you liked it. If you didn't, please tell me why. If you liked it a lot, please consider donating to my Ko-fi or becoming a member of my Patreon. I'm Crab, and thank you for watching.